In this video, we're going to bring a Hallicrafters model S-76 back from its long hibernation. This radio has not been turned on in decades. Fortunately, it's in stock condition. I did bring the radio up on a variac. It lights up, but nobody's home. You see it has the original filter cap, and that would obviously be an issue. Let's take a look underneath and see if it's full of wax caps. So we'll scan the bottom of the receiver. And here they come. All those drippy waxers. There's quite a few. I counted about 16 of them. And there are some of those old bumblebees that we know like to short out. So before I apply power again, I'm going to change out all these caps, including the main filter cap. There's no reason to torture this thing when we know those old caps are bad. Here's the back side of the receiver. You can see it doesn't look too bad. It's a little bit of dust. Some spot corrosion on the chassis. One thing I did notice is the main tuning dial. It's a plastic material and it's warped. I believe it sat for a long time with this dial light behind it and unfortunately warped it. So I'm going to have to remove that and straighten it out. Also notice dial cord wise, this dial cord here looks like sewing thread. Very fine. That's not going to hold up. Good thing is when I was testing it, that big giant original S meter responded. So it's not bad. And that makes this project well worth doing. So I'm going to start by changing out the main filter cap with the CE manufacturing reproduction. You can see this one's a little bit shorter than the original, but it has the right specs. I'll get that in there and then we'll change out the waxers. I'm going to start out with the main filter cap. You can see the original has 3 sections, and that is 60, 20, 20. I'm going to replace it with a 4-section cap that I have on hand, and it is 40, 40, 20, 20. So I'm going to strap a 40 and a 20 to get the 60. Then we'll follow it with the 40 and the other 20. Now the easiest way to get these out is to take a pair of wire cutters, get underneath of where the connections are, and clip those terminals. Then you'll have a road map. You can easily unsolder this terminal and transfer the wires on to the new cap. The next thing you have to deal with are these little tabs that they bend. The soldered ones, I take a pair of pliers and just work the tab back and forth. And the solder will actually just come right off the chassis. It takes a few seconds here. There. See? It's right off of there. Now, the one you got to worry about is right down there, because there is a coaxial shield that's soldered to it. So what I'm going to do is remove these other 2 tabs. I'm just going to bend the cap over and it will break that tab on top of the chassis. So 3 of those tabs are loose. The only one that's still connected is the one that you saw soldered. So just bend the cap back and forth. It'll fatigue that metal and it'll come off. Alright, the cap is removed. You can see what's left of the other terminal with the wire still on it underneath. It's time to get the new one in. So for the fun of it, let's check that cap. I've got my ESR meter hooked up. That section looks okay. And that one. So, the old filter cap was still trying to do its thing, but I always change them because they're old, crusty, and leaky. So filter cap replacement is complete. For a quick check, I brought the receiver up on a variac to verify I had high voltage. It's looking good. I'm pulling a little over a ½ amp. The current's holding steady. But it's time to change out those wax caps. Well, here's an observation I made. These 2 caps are 0.05 microfarad 200 volts. We'll turn on the receiver and watch the voltage that's actually applied to them. Look at there, around 265. Now I'm sure once it warms up, it'll go under that 200 volt level. However, these caps should be bumped up to at least 400 volters for the recap. I changed out those 2.05 microfarad caps with some 0.047s at 400 volts. You can see this lead went direct to the pin on the tube socket, whereas this one over here I actually spliced into that old lead. The reason I did that is these IF cans are pretty fragile. You don't want to bend or heat those leads. And then the grounds, you see I swung them down to this socket, whereas they used to go over here. That was just because of the physical size of the old caps. Alright, it's time to do a little wellness check. I've changed out 4 wax caps, hooked up a speaker. Just going to see if we have any signs of life yet. I'm not hearing anything, but look, the meter is working. So that's pretty cool. But still, no stations heard. Let's get back to it. Well, guess what? I just changed out a little 0.02 microfarad waxer, and now I have receive. It's probably not the best, but it's trying. Making progress. So I got some pretty good traction on changing out the caps. You can see all those little Panasonic type installed. The bin is filling up. So I always like to give these things a wellness check as I'm doing the work. So this is that AM band, and that is working, but I also noticed if I go to a band above it, I'm hearing some other action. So she's slowly coming to life. I'm just using a jumper wire for an antenna. Good deal. Alright, continue with the cap changing. So all the waxers are gone. Next step, I would like to test it on all bands and check functions. So I will be powering at full line voltage. I installed a fuse, which this radio didn't have. Don't know how they got away with that. Alright, let's fire it up. Alright, we're going to test all the bands. I'm on broadcast right now.
CBS News special report. The U.S. Supreme Court taking up a challenge to President Trump's tariffs. Opponents of his unilateral action are outside the court. The voters...
The broadcast band looks good. Now I'm up on what would be called the 40 meter band. Now, I have not cleaned any of these controls yet. I'm not hearing a lot of action on band 2. So let's go to 3. Sounds like there's some activity there, but the bands are usually dead this time of day. And here's band 4, which is usually dead on all of these receivers. It appears as though it's also trying to work. Here's the station.
I don't sell your email. It doesn't go to any junk place. It's literally for me.
Alright, good deal. So next, I need to clean the controls and obviously check those tubes. I don't know if any of those are weak. Sometimes on these old radios, the tubes are the last thing to go. So let's see. And then the other challenge would be straightening out this tuning dial. There is a big swell here, I think, caused by heat of the lamp. I'm hoping that possibly I can remove that dial, press it between 2 pieces of wood maybe, bake it in the oven and see if it'll naturally straighten back out. So a few other items I didn't check would be these switches. So you see we have a lot of noise. Noise limiter appears to be working. How about CW? Sounds like that oscillator's running. And AVC. So everything appears to be functional. Alright, well that wraps up recapping of the Hallicrafter S-76 receiver. When I get the front panel off, straighten out that dial, clean things up, check tubes, etc., I'll be doing a follow-up. Well, here's a sneak preview of the warped tuning dial. My plan is to remove it, trap it between two pieces of wood, bake it in my oven at warm for quite a few hours and see if it naturally straightens itself back out. So to flatten that warped dial, I sandwich it between two pieces of wood with a weight on top, put it in my oven at 175, and looky there, she's laying flat. So it took about 2 hours before I saw the board lay flat. So the warp is gone. I'm going to continue to let it bake a little bit, but I think we have a successful flat dial. So in case you're wondering, here is how I made my little dial flattener. I had a piece of wood with the weights on top that you saw in the oven. So the dial has a hub on it. So you have to allow clearance for that. So I just drilled a hole so she laid flat. Of course, the pressure of the wood and the heat, she laid right back down. There's still a very slight ripple right there, but I'm really not going to worry about it. That is flat enough, and luckily it worked because there are no reproductions available on this dial that I know of. So while I have the face pulled, now's a great time to get in here and clean the chassis, lubricate things, take a look at these dial cords. If you look at this one right here, you can see somebody repaired it. There's a knot tied in it, and that cord looks pretty old and brittle, so I'm going to go ahead and replace it. This one looks okay, and then of course we got this green, looks like a nylon cord they used on that rear dial. The tuning caps themselves feel a little stiff. They do have a bearing surface, and of course there's little wiper arms that you want to clean while you have access. Rest of it, I would say just a good wipe down with some cleaning solvent. I'm not going to worry about corrosion. It's really coming along. Okay, I've got the receiver back together. Still need to close up the meter lead little housing, fix that main tuning dial. I cleaned and lubed all the mechanical workings and replaced that one dial cord that looked flaky. Everything's looking good, and I powered it up hoping for the best, and guess what? Well, the first problem I had is the band selector knob just wouldn't tighten. It couldn't handle the torque, so I had to substitute that. But here's the other problem. Fire it up. It's going to take a little bit to warm up. I'm using a RF generator. This is a B&K 970, and we're going to monitor the S meter on the radio. Here she comes. Got the dial right at 1,000. My generator's set there. I may have to tweak it. Alright. So there she is. So you can see the meter's reading, but the longer the radio's on, you'll start seeing that meter nosediving to the left, meaning it's losing sensitivity. I've read online, there's some guys on an antique forum that are complaining about the same thing. And everybody's like, well, did you check the tubes? Is there any bad solder connections? You know, the typical. But we don't have those problems with this radio. It's been recapped and I verified everything. As a matter of fact, I did change. There's some 3.3K resistors going to the IF cans. And that is in series with this S meter. So, as you guys know, in the past I've had to rebuild a lot of the IF cans, especially in the S40Bs. Alright, so if you watch, the meter is starting to decrease. It starts out slow, depending on how cold the radio was. But as she warms up, the meter starts going down. It's happening. has two IFs with little miniature tubes going to them. Look at there. There she is. Dead silent. Doesn't matter where you put the volume. Doesn't matter what you tune. You see the meter's not even responding anymore to tuning. Let's take a look underneath. So you see these little 3.3K resistors. They're going to the IF cans. I found initially those were cooked. So right now I'm monitoring off of one of the IF cans. Just turned on the receiver. You see we got about 300 volts. Try to keep away from that glare. Radio's going to warm up and it's going to dive down to about 260 or so. Okay, I had to retune the radio. Must have bumped the knob. So we're receiving. The meter is up around S9 right now. I'll watch that voltage on the IF cam. And that feeds a 6BA6 tube. I believe it's V4. She's still hanging in there. Okay, it's starting to drop. And slows the voltage. Down she goes. We're about S4 right now. Then it dies. Now if I go to this side of the resistor, you'll see we've got the 260 volts. When it's running normally, you see about that same level on both sides of the resistor. So I suspect that we've got a bad mica cap inside of the IF can. Now I've never had one of these type open before, but it looks like it may be a little trickier than the type that I work on the S40Bs. So, fun times. I gotta tear them out and inspect them. Okay, I unwired and removed the IF can. The next thing is how do you get it apart without damaging it? I noticed this is loose. So it looks like the only thing holding this in the aluminum case are these top little ears on the adjustment. So it looks like it may be easier than what I think. I just push those tabs in. It looks like she might slide right out. There is some resistance. Got to be very careful not to damage that coil. And there are the caps. So it doesn't look like too bad of a job. Alright, I clipped one side of the caps. According to the schematic, those are 390 puff. So I put it on my nifty little cap checker. It shows 365. However, the markings on the cap show 390, so that's what I'm going to install. Alright, there's the old caps. The new ones are now installed on the bottom of the base. Electrically, there's no difference. I did not want to risk interrupting the terminals in here and breaking those fine wires on the coil. Let's get her back together. So the first IF can recapping is complete. I'm going to take it in the other room and test. Well, guess what? It didn't change anything. Isn't that wonderful? Okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and rebuild the other IF can because I know that this silver mica disease exists. And if that doesn't fix it, we'll have to keep on troubleshooting.
It's the Top 5 at
There
5
it is.
every weekday afternoon on Cool FM.
The second IF capacitors fixed the radio.
And the Top 5 at 5 is brought to you by Joe's at Long Lake and Delton. Don't
Working
expect
great.
the ordinary, they're extraordinary. Today we are doing
Here's my band spread.
songs that have song titles in their lyrics. And we'll kick it off.
It was
with
quite the repair,
Number 5 from the
but well
bottom of
worth it.
Papa's Creek Out.
I'm glad it's over.
That's in
Tell you what,
California.
I spent days on this thing, people.
Both in their songs.
But what a great receiver.
And the lyrics actually just
And they're pretty rare.
their experiences.
This one's performing well. don't have a lot of stations around here. Check on shortwave bands here. Here's some sidebanders on 40. Whoa! What was that?
That's likely what this letter was written in. Anyway, to encourage the Pope to think and act independently of past precedents, Columbanus quoted Ecclesiastes chapter 9, verse 4. So
super cool. So I did peak the IF after changing those caps.
Southeast of Louisville by about
So here's some
20
40 meter AMers.
And anyway, he had sent a picture up of a large buck, so it must have been several years old. Had a fantastic rack. So he did that Boone Crockett scoring on it, and it scored pretty deep. So, just fantastic animal he had collected out there. We've been having an issue here in Kentucky with the chronic wasting disease with deer population. So we've got the restrictions in several counties throughout Kentucky.
Nice and sensitive.
This all before YouTube. There's a lot of YouTubers.
Here's some
we watch now,
40 meter sideband.
Millennial Farmer and Hayden on Harvest and all that are really great to watch. But I did at that time when I did mine, there was no YouTube, so I just did a bunch of pictures and put them together on the internet here. But anyhow, and as you get older, everything seems to get stiffer and stiffer. And I know I'm 70. What am I now? 74 now, and no, 73. I'm 70. I'm so damn old that I can't even remember.
You missed some of that, Don. Good thing you did. But what was your?
So that is a wrap on the Hallicrafters S-76 repair. Got a little bit more complicated than what I thought it would, but I had fun, and I'm sure you did too.